Well, what happened in here, we got coolant in the base, probably either from a water pump, liner seals, or a blown head gasket. So when we take it apart, we'll see traces. If it's the water pump, we'll see traces coming down. If the weep hole's plugged,
okay,
then the coolant would go into the base if the seal was leaking.
Okay.
So we'll see a trace from there if that was the cause. And if it's a blown head gasket, we'll see a burnt fire ring. And otherwise than that, I'm presuming it's a liner seal that's leaking. So the coolant's going past the outside of the liner into the base.
So it comes in here, it's steam. Like as it comes in, it's steam.
Yeah, the coolant, just from the heat of the engine, the coolant just turns.
How would have I noticed that? If it would have, if let's say we were running this truck, carried on running this truck, one, would it be smoking white when you started up?
No, you'd be losing coolant.
Losing coolant.
And what you'd see is steam coming out your draft tube.
Okay. And your oil level coming up. If a lot of it.
Not usually, because what happens is it evaporates, right?
Okay.
Because of the it evaporates because of steam, and then it just dissipates, and so you don't really see your oil coming up unless it's a drastic leak. But usually it's basically just your coolant level going down and excessive smoke coming out your draft tube.
Okay. And this truck had quite a bit of oil leaks on it too. You could see, especially, where would you say this oil leak is here?
This oil leak here is coming from the timing gear plate where it bolts onto the block. So basically we're going to take the whole front of the engine apart. We're going to strip it down to a bare block, and then we're just going to replace all the gaskets and seals, and
okay.
We're going to overhaul the engine, new pistons, liners, cylinder head, injectors. Then we're going to send the block out to get dipped, and we'll send it over to Doug's to get painted after. It's all together. Yeah, I just disconnected it off the engine fan stat and marked the wires.
Brad's working at the front of the motor. He's getting ready to take off the brackets and all the components going for the AC compressor and the alternator. As you could see with the look on Brad's face, this part that he's pulling off is very heavy. Instead of tearing piece by piece off, Brad attempts to take everything in one shot.
Usually 3/8 bolt is about 45 foot-pounds.
Seems like more, that one seems like more.
I think it's seized. Yeah, it just broke.
Imagine that, eh?
Imagine that. More work. Yep, this is the intake manifold, and I was just pulling the bolt out for the wiring harness.
So the intake manifold is cast aluminum?
Yep. I was hoping Phil would have this already done for me, instead of playing with his friggin' boom truck.
So basically all Phil did was take the top cover off.
I think that's all he did, and then he called me. Well, he got the dirty job of pulling it out too, so that's not too bad.
I only took the valve covers off because I didn't want to void the warranty. How's it coming apart?
Oh, not too bad.
He's blaming you constantly, Phil. He's blaming you constantly.
Right now I'm just pulling off the power steering pump. There's an accessory drive gear in here, and it just drives the air compressor, and there's a gear in here for the injection pump.
So that's the air compressor right there.
This is the air compressor. I'm just taking off the oil feed line for the air crankshaft for the air compressor. We'll replace it when it goes back together.
Will the compressor need to be rebuilt? Or?
No, the compressor should be okay. It's a remanufactured compressor on there already. You can tell by the blue paint, it's a Bendix air compressor. Right now I'm just pulling off the air governor. Phil will replace it when it goes back together. We'll put a new one on.
Maintains the pressure of the system? Or?
Yep, it unloads the pressure when it reaches around 120 psi.
As you could see, Brad was fighting with some of the bolts. It's always a wonder when you could get those bolts off and you haven't broke them, but he's pulling them bolts to get the starter off.
While we're on this side of the engine, I'll pull the fuel lines off, or the injection lines. Now I'm just putting on protective caps so no debris gets in the injection pumps. The injectors are inside the engine, right in here. There's a fuel line where it comes up here and goes around, and the nozzle is right inside here. We'll be taking them out later today, I hope. I'll just pull that intake manifold off the other side.
So why do these come out so easily?
Well, they're still corroded quite a bit. But I think it's because it's a bottomed hole. There's no dirt that can get inside.
Brad's taking off right now the intake piping that goes to the intake piping for the turbo. And he's going to be pulling now the turbos off.
I have to write down some parts that I need to get. Oh, I better. A bit of a safety measure in case that bolt breaks. The engine's worse than I thought it was. So I'm just gonna pull off the oil cooler and the water pump so I can get this side of the engine cleaned up.
Everything's nice and well oiled down there.
Yeah.
Now the part that Brad's got in his hands is he's actually pulling off the water pump.
Now this is the water pump, but if it was the cause of the coolant in the base, this weep hole would be plugged and you'd see stains of coolant running out this seal in here. Here's the weep hole right here. If I just take a screwdriver here, there's a little sponge in here to absorb any coolant coming out of here. And what happens is this gets all caked up with dirt and stuff, and it plugs up this hole. So instead of, this internal seal starts leaking, it's supposed to come out this hole. And if this hole is plugged, it'll leak into the base. This hole is not plugged, and there'd be traces of coolant inside here if that seal is leaking. So this is okay. Yeah, that's a good thing because we can reuse the water pump, but we'll have to dig deeper to find the cause of the failure there now.
Guessing.
No, I still suspect the liner seals. Once we get the head off, we'll take a look at the gasket and see if it's leaking. I'll have to pull the engine brake off, and then pull the injectors out, pull the rocker shaft off, and then just undo the head bolts and it's ready to come off.